This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
Good morning. My name is Tim Martin. I am the Chief Operating Officer at the UCXchange. We are based here in Charlotte as well as Chicago. Just to give you a quick background on myself, 29 years old, lived in Charlotte for 7 years now. I actually moved here originally as a mini tour golfer, funny enough. When I was 25 years old, my wife and I were engaged and my knees were giving out on me, so I ventured into a technology startup called GTG Golf. Spent a couple years doing that and ultimately transitioned into a consulting gig. Started my own independent consulting company, working for a hedge fund, providing unbiased research into mobile applications, which ultimately led me to UCX, which is an on-demand spot exchange for companies to buy and sell the cloud. UCX owns a patented algorithm that takes the 6 core components of compute processing power and converts it into one standardized unit of measure. Compare it to wattage for electricity, we have the WAC. So why is this important? The current model of IT expenditures is an allocation-based model. So when you buy resources from AWS or Rackspace or IBM, ultimately you're paying for a box. The details of it is you only end up utilizing about 20 to 50%. So there's a lot of waste that takes place there. The beautiful thing about the WAC is it's a consumption-based model, so ultimately you pay for what you consume. Currently we have 3 suppliers fully onboarded. We are in the process of bringing another 3 to 4 into the realm right now. They're in the onboarding process. The big value for a customer to come to us is we provide multiple providers competing for your business at a consumption-based model. Currently, we've raised $2.25 million. We're in the process of starting a Series A funding round, and we've got commitments for $300,000, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
What do you got? Great job. One of the things that you did, one of the things you did really well is, I mean, this is a 2-minute pitch, but you gave us a good background on yourself, and not many people do that. And you have a great background to talk about, but very succinctly, do you think you established credibility? And that is really tough in 2 minutes, and that's one of the biggest things that you have to do when you're trying to meet somebody, trying to convince them to have a cup of coffee with you. It's like, is this person somebody that I want to sit down with and have another conversation, whether you're selling or whether you're pitching? So I think you did that very well, and you did it in 20 seconds, I think.
Sure, yeah, this is the most people I've ever had in an elevator with me. So.
Yeah, we're pretending
and
that
2 minutes is a long elevator ride.
We're pretending that we're in an elevator, but
even though I was afraid it was going to be like 30 seconds and it would just be crickets. So.
I think you also structure this well. I mean, it sounds like you've done this before. You structure this well. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I got the basics, and I do want to know more. And it's not just because you've raised some money before. Actually, if you say I've raised $0, I still think you would want to. I would want to know more. The piece that I want to know more about is the product itself, the process itself. It sounds like you are an exchange. You have buyers and sellers, and you're bringing them together through a more efficient process.
A centralized, transparent exchange, and probably the biggest piece that I forgot to mention, funny enough, is so we are partnered with the CME Group in Chicago, which is why we have a headquarters, or not headquarters, but an office there. And essentially, the CME is backing the ongoing creation and development of UCX. So they've actually licensed from us a 20-year commitment to create WAC derivative products, essentially trade options. So we are the actual spot exchange where customers would come on demand and buy their resources. And ultimately, once we have enough liquidity and volume taking place on the spot exchange, they've licensed from us the ability to create futures and option products.
So it is an interesting problem because it's in an efficient market, and that's pretty clear. I think that a lot of people are trying to sort of the procurement process, improve the procurement process. But anytime that you have, as an investor, anytime you have a pitch that is pitching a marketplace, usually it's a 2-sided marketplace. You want to learn about the supply and demand side and the benefits for both sides, because the trickiest part is going to be to build a balanced marketplace. If you have the interest from one group and not the other, business is not going to go anywhere. So can you elaborate on that? It seems to me that here the buyer is benefiting and it's unclear to me how the seller is benefiting.
So the seller is actually pretty easy. So we look at compute resources just like fresh food. So ultimately, if you buy fresh food and you don't eat it, it perishes. So your investment is going to waste. So a lot of these data centers are buying server space and it's just sitting there unused. So every second that goes on that it's not being utilized, essentially they're wasting their investment. So the biggest talking point there is, so we provide an ability for them to sell their excess capacity in kind of a commoditized fashion. The other opportunity is we provide a sales force essentially for free. So it's an opportunity to reduce their overhead costs, where instead of them bringing in sales guys on their own force, we provide that resource for them.
So I didn't catch that it was only for data centers. You mentioned IT expenditures, which is huge. It could be everything. But you're focusing only on data centers?
From a supply side, I mean, right now the natural fit is kind of a mid-market data center. So we've talked to the big guys, and they're kind of waiting to see how we prove the model and prove the concept. So we're working with more of the mid-tier cloud service providers. Ultimately, where we want to get to is build niche financial products, for instance, healthcare related or HIPAA related financial services. So essentially, Bank of America right here could take their unused capacity and resell it to SunTrust or Wells Fargo, and we would build contract specifications designed specifically for that industry. So yeah, but I mean, right now today it is cloud service providers that are our sellers. Yeah, because it's the easiest transition for them to kind of get up and going.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea. I think your point on bringing out this relationship and this partnership with CME adds a tremendous amount of credibility to this story for a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously that's a powerhouse commodity exchange globally, and it's been just a rocket ship equity stock in and of itself. And very sophisticated players in a lot of commodities. So that's big. I think your background's interesting. I'm wrestling to see how being a aspiring professional golfer led directly into a cloud-based storage exchange model, but maybe there's something there. But
Your life is a journey.
Congratulations on an interesting transition.
I also never graduated college, and so I've got an interesting path. But two of the other partners involved are ex-traders on the CME. So they were the crazy guys that you see in a Wall Street movie wearing the coats, jumping around with the papers. So I can't really claim that it was my idea and concept. I'm more of the go-getter and doer type, which is why I'm the operating officer, because I'm the guy who actually gets things done, and everybody else kind of thinks about these high-level ideas and that never really ever pan out to anything. Yeah, well, don't tell them I said that, but.
You're the one that makes sure the paychecks go out, right?
And one piece that I forgot to mention is, so we actually were able to license the CME's liquid trading platform, which was huge for us, because if we had to go build our own trading platform, it would have taken years and millions of dollars. So we were able to accelerate speed to market, and so we are leveraging, their back end. I mean, we're literally using like 2% of what they've developed over 20 years of.
Yeah, this is not so much on the pitch, because I understand you were saddled with a limited amount of time, but like most things, the way I think about it, I really try to figure out how the business works, how the complete value chain of the solution works, where the revenue opportunity is identifiable or accretes to the provider. In this case, are you able to charge both on the buy side and the sell side? And if you could elaborate on that, that'd be interesting.
Sure. So we make our revenue in a very traditional market sense. So processing fees, transaction fees, ultimately if we have enough usage, market data fees. We've actually got a licensing engagement where we own 49% of a company who's doing this exclusively in the Indian marketplace. Essentially to trade the cloud just in India. So basically we have two types of memberships. An alpha membership, which is probably much of our audience, a startup or a small business who's just looking to buy some compute from us. For every whack they consume, we collect 25 cents. And then our Omega members are essentially our bigger enterprises and cloud service providers, and we charge 10 cents per KWAC consumed or traded.
So you're essentially a broker on both the buy and the sell side?
I wouldn't say that we're the broker. Ultimately, we would like to have a broker sitting in their collecting the margin or the delta of trades. Right now, we are brokering trades just to kind of create the market.
Do you think you're a market maker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned WAC, and maybe I missed it. What is a WAC?
So the WAC is the patented algorithm that takes the 6 core components and converts it into the WAC. It's a comparison to the watt.
So it's the unit of measure.
That's correct. Yep. Essentially, it's memory, CPU, storage, disk, WAN, and LAN, and it converts it into one unit of measure so everybody can kind of speak the same language.
How do you get your customers? Because to me, that's going to be the next biggest question.
Yeah.
How do you go? Is it you going out there and knocking on the door of Bank of America?
I mean, it's just like any startup, right? So
What gives you a special, other than the fact that you're a golfer, if you
we're-
communicate well, what
Yeah.
gives you the sauce to
Well,
say,
you know, going out on the golf course helps.
Okay.
You know, but
and losing to them, right?
ultimately, what we decided, we kind of copied some existing models from other early exchanges that successfully were acquired or took off. And basically what they do is they subsidize early adoption, very similar to how PayPal got started. So right now we are basically paying for compute for early adopters to come onto the exchange, which has been incredible. Now, we look at this as a long-term opportunity. This is not something where we're, substantial revenue in the next couple of years. This is a vision where we're going to transition how people use the cloud, purchase the cloud. So essentially what we have on the street right now is a $20,000 subsidized plan. So if somebody comes onto the exchange, we will provide them $20,000 for free, and us as the exchange, we've worked out deals with our cloud service providers who are committed to the long-term, exchange model. So they are basically providing us, discounted rates.
Do you think you're competing with Amazon?
So I get that question like every person I ever talk to. Right now we are, because we want Amazon's customers to use the exchange. Long term, we would love to have Amazon be a provider on the exchange, because that would be the ultimate complement to what we're doing, right? So the idea is Amazon does not have a way to sell futures. So they should be leveraging UCX and our back end, our financial engines to provide them a way to do that, yeah.
In your model, where does security flow into that? Because you did mention a couple other high security areas such
Sure.
as HIPAA.
Absolutely. So
There's a lot of compliance there.
So we've partnered with a company called Plant Moran, who is a third-party auditor. They're headquartered in Chicago, so the relationship was kind of natural. They're kind of a next tier down from like an Accenture or a PwC. And so essentially when a cloud service provider comes on, they actually help us vet and assess basically the credibility of the actual supplier coming on. So we require our suppliers to do a self-assessment to basically, here's what we do, and then they come in and basically validate what they're doing. And so depending on the level of contract that we're actually developing, we standardize as much as possible, and then if there's unique requirements, we can do over the counter, and we leverage, basically Plant Moran to be the expert as far as, making sure compliance and regulation is in check.
Yeah, but that still opens the security hole in the fact that a B of A individual has access to that, the actual machine. So that's where some of that compliance and some of that security really becomes, I'm not questioning the model, not at all.
Sure.
I think it's great. I like what you're doing.
Thanks.
But the security side of it is, because that's the world I live in.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, security is, anytime you flip on the news, it's number one concern out there in the marketplace. I lose sleep over it. The fact of the matter is you can get hacked on AWS as easy as you can on providers here in Charlotte or providers anywhere around the world. So it's a universal consideration. Yeah, I mean, that's why that's kind of a more of a longer term vision, kind of a financial services HIPAA type thing. So we're still kind of going through that. I don't unfortunately have all the answers to how that would work. We don't have a product on the market today, but that's kind of a 12 to 18 month out type opportunity that we're going to leverage our partners to kind of help craft the solution that hopefully I can answer this question better.
How do you buy that as a buyer? Does the software actually compare all those?
So we are literally metering the underlying compute processing power. Everything else from a services standpoint is a value add, if that makes sense. So we measure Rackspace, IBM, AWS on the underlying resources and
Not on the managed services on top.
not necessarily, no.
You have to procure those separately.
Potentially, yes. I mean, it's not that our suppliers don't actually offer those. It's just not built into the standardized contract that we have in place. So if that was a requirement for your particular business, basically we could put together a request for quote, and I could go out to my suppliers and essentially.
Secure the low side of the compute, and then we would separately negotiate. with
That's
the
correct, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So similar type of question. I'm trying to understand who you're targeting.
Sure, so I mean, the number one argument is when you go to a data, or a provider right now, you are basically paying what they tell you you're gonna pay. So we created a marketplace where now you have multiple providers competing for your business. So you're gonna get the best, best prices available amongst multiple providers. So that would be number one. The second is, again, the consumption-based model. So there's a lot of waste taking place with AWS or whoever, Rackspace or whoever you're working with. The idea is with a consumption-based model, you're gonna save anywhere from 30 to potentially 60%.
Tim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.